Is year 2 after major surgery supposed to be the season when everything returns to normal for NFL players? Or do they ever really return to normal? Bienvenidos and welcome to the Injury Prone Podcast. I'm Jorge Martin, and hey, my compadre, co-host, and co-pilot, estamos aquí con Dr. Edwin Porras. ¿Cómo estamos, compa?
Estamos bien. As I try to unmute myself, I'm ready to talk some I think topics that need to be covered and talk a little bit about Breece Hall, right, Javonte Williams, what those guys look like, and hopefully try to describe how players can be successful, whether you draft these guys or not.
Yeah, well, hopefully some of these we get some success stories, because there's some success stories for you from victory lap or two for you to take. But first off, I want to make sure you're going to the Injury Prone Podcast on YouTube. We see you out there. We see those subscriber numbers growing. But if you haven't already, jump in, hit that like, hit that subscribe. You're getting more good content. And also make sure we are proud partners with our compadres over at Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code Injury Prone, all one word, no spaces, Injury Prone. And on your first deposit, you get up to $250 on that first deposit. You get matched $250, $500 to play with on Best Ball Mania, puppies, chihuahuas, whatever. We love the chihuahuas here because we're very pro chihuahua in this, except for when they want to fight my dog, but that's a whole other story. But compa, first off, you got some familia coming into town to the Rocky Mountains. What are you looking forward to showing them?
Honestly, we're gonna go down to some, outside of Denver. We're gonna be in the mountains. I really enjoy the mountains, man. It was the right decision to move out here. Really enjoy I don't want to say it sounds so cliche, like the wilderness, right? But I'm a city person, but I enjoy being out in the wild, right? Take a little inventory, take stock, take a deep breath, touch some grass, not be such a degenerate on my computer all the time or treating clients and writing programs all the time. I do enjoy spending time with my wife out in the middle of nowhere. So that's what we're going to show them. We're going to sort of show them the middle of nowhere, but in Colorado, it's a beautiful place. Hey, compadre, this was not planned, but I'm going to ask everybody listening right now. We've had a handful of comments and requests about, number one, the tequila list. I've gotten a lot of DMs about that. If you want the tequila list, shoot me a DM on Twitter. I'll always respond to tequila-related questions. I'll send you over the list that I'm using to try to work through. Number two, if you want to be in a listener league, we'll call it full PPR, sleeper, because we only do full PPR around here. Well, at least I do. Yes. I know Underdog, our good folks at Underdogs are half PPR, and we have no problem with that. But we'll do full PPR. Maybe, what are you thinking, compadre, if we do the Superflex? You think Superflex, non-Superflex? I don't know. Some of these guys are hardcore.
Let's do Superflex. Let's say 12-team Superflex is just perfect. Let's throw some nuttiness at them.
Yeah. If you want to be in the league, comment. What do you want to say? Superflex compadre. That's SFCOMPADRE. Put it in the comments right now if you're on YouTube. If not, email injurypronepod@gmail.com. And as soon as we get those, we get some interest, and we will create a league and we'll go from there.
And while you're at it, make sure, if you haven't already subscribe to the channel. Come on, you're going to be getting some really good content. So, compa, that's really good. That's a nice little curveball, because, hey, you know what? Speaking of curveballs, baseball may be taking the All-Star break, but we didn't take the break. So we're here. We are here. Estamos aquí. But you know what? Injuries never take a break, and we're kind of talking about post-injury in this one, the year 2. And every time, I'm sure you've gotten tired of hearing about how Adrian Peterson went for 2,097 yards in his first year after post ACL surgery, and people make it like it's the norm, and not taking it that he's really an alien from another planet and did that. But isn't it more likely that they're better off after a full off season of training, after having that full 12 months to recuperate and having that timetable filled, but then also training and not rehabbing in that first full off season after surgery?
Yeah, there's no doubt that having that second year to get their sea legs back under them, psychologically, physically, both, a lot of the times, is super important. But the thing that most people don't realize when it comes, most fantasy managers don't realize when it comes to year two, right? That's, oh, it's a year after the year after. That's not necessarily always true. It always depends on the individual, but there are about 30% of NFL running backs who tear their ACL they just fall out of the league. So a lot of this data that I'm about to give you is obviously very biased, and it shows a lot of survivorship bias. So this basically, if you don't know what that means, essentially what it means is these guys are probably already the cream of the crop that are sticking around. They have the opportunity to stick around. Teams give them the shot, and they get the time, and they get the training, and they get their sea legs back under them. So obviously we have to take it with a grain of salt. But running backs after an ACL tear who come back in year two after the ACL, they do see some improvements, right? Since 2011, they improve in year two in missed tackles forced per attempt, that's plus 17%. They improve in yards created per attempt, that's 9%. And they improve in receptions per game, that's 39%, a positive 39%, right? So if you're looking at that, and we're about to talk about a couple of guys that buck the trend. Last year, I talked about a lot Breece Hall, right? I said this guy's not going to wait until, some guys are impatient, right? Some guys, their bodies are like, nah, let's go now, let's do it. But those are generally outlier guys in the first place. Most guys will either fall out of the league, by definition, statistically, most guys after an ACL, running backs will fall out of the league, or they'll improve in year two, right? So we got a couple guys that fall into that bucket. It's a scary thing, right? It's a scary thing about drafting a guy off an ACL, but you put it here in the doc, and I say it all the time, compadre, like, scared money don't make money. I always have to remind myself of that. If you're listening to this show and you're scared, if you draft your RB, I'll tell you this, if you draft your RB2, unless it's a massive value, if you draft your RB2, immediately after you draft your RB1, unsubscribe from the show. You play way too safe. You probably wear 2 pairs of socks in the summertime. I don't like it. We play to win. We don't care about beating ADP. We want guys to blow their ADP out of the water.
Yeah, we like to wear no socks on our huaraches, so that kind of thing. Though my dad occasionally did, but that's a story for another day. But you mentioned Breece Hall, and that was one of the ones, and that was I remember specifically when when you were a guest on the Familia FFP podcast, where you threw that at me, where you talked about how you were fine having him as your hero RB, considering where he was being drafted at the time, and he delivered. Now, the first 4 weeks were quiet. He did not have a lot of touches. His high end touches was 13, but then in week 5, he had 25 total touches, 22 rush attempts. And then I looked at the numbers from weeks 5 to 18, and he had his bye in there. Weeks 5 to 18, he had 260.3 fantasy points. He was the RB2, just 11 points behind Christian McCaffrey. Now, McCaffrey did sit out week 18 on that one, but still, that just shows what he did. And he had 37 carries in week 18 last year. That's with no Aaron Rodgers, compa. Now you've got hopefully healthy Aaron Rodgers, with Garrett Wilson clearing out space, making sure that there's no 8 men in a box. Could we be looking at the guy who is gonna challenge Christian McCaffrey for the RB1 title?
I do think so. I do think that that's very much in the cards, very much on the table for Breece Hall. Like you said, in the first 4 weeks, he didn't really see a lot of action. We sort of predicted that. We thought that might be the case, but he's going to be full bore now. Maybe he's got a little bit of competition, right, in that RB2 slot, but they told, and the reason that I was so confident last year when they signed Dalvin Cook, as Diana Rossini, really good reporter. Very rarely when she reports something, is it incorrect? Is it inaccurate? She seems to have decent relationships around the league. She may not be all over the place, omnipresent like Adam Schefter, but the relationships that she does have, she tends to deliver on. And she said specifically that the front office told Breece Hall, and they were very transparent with Dalvin Cook when they signed him in the offseason during camp. They said, this is Breece Hall's backfield. And that would make sense, right? They wanted a guy that was a veteran guy, could pick up the offense. Aaron Rodgers was a little familiar with him playing in the same division, right? They probably knew each other to a certain degree. And that's what their plan was, obviously, before Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. But they wanted a guy that would be able to take the load off Breece Hall for that first month as he got ramped up. And then the plan was always for him to take over. That's exactly what we saw happen. So now that he's back, he's probably going to see an increase in his efficiency. He's probably going to see he knows the offense better. The offense is going to be better. They're going to put up more yards. They're going to put up more touchdowns. And I think that Breece Hall could absolutely push Christian McCaffrey for that RB1 slot this year.
No, I'm stoked. I mean, he is. I've actually grabbed him one time. I got a while, I estaba poquito loco. I got a little bit of wild hair and drafted him. I think at number 3 overall because I wanted to change things up in an underdog draft. But he's right now the RB3 going number 8. I think he could blow that. I mean, even that high, I think he could take that over. So that's gonna be good. Let's go into his fellow 2021 draftee, Javonte Williams, who also was subject of a lot of hype going into the 2022 season when he tore his ACL. His was multi-ligament. And I think that the big difference between the two of them is Breece Hall had a near perfect RAS score. He was 9.96. And obviously it was a clean tear. And you talk about athletic ability, Javonte Williams 8.79, not elite, still good, still age 22, still a round 2 pick. One thing that struck me when I did an interview with Troy Rank of the Denver Post, he talked about how Javonte Williams last year was not he was not breaking tackles like he did in his rookie season. And I looked at the missed tackles forced between 2021. He had 63 in 203 attempts. And last year he had 34 in 217 attempts. So almost half in more attempts. His yards after contact, 694 in 2021, 588 again in more attempts. He had 264 total touches, but one of the things that Troy Rank did say, he looked like he was a little bit more built up and like his legs were a little thicker. We've heard talk about guys coming back from the injury, maybe being atrophying. I mean, could that training, that extra level of thickness, maybe bring back a little bit of that missed tackles forced guy?
No, I mean, yeah, just in general, all the training that they do, right? Not necessarily just being thicker in the legs, but being faster, being quicker, psychologically being back under your leg, right? There always is a chance when you have it's a posterior lateral corner. I believe, if I'm off the top of my head, that it was for Javonte Williams. There's always a chance that guy is legitimately never the same. But I think that given everything we've seen so far, there's no reason to believe that he can't get back his sea legs back under him, like you said. The problem that I see with Javonte Williams, compadre, is I sort of view him like, yeah, he'll probably pay off his ADP or beat it slightly. I just don't think that he's got, because of the context of that offense, because Bo Nix, who Sean Payton said is the next Patrick Mahomes or whatever he said, whatever ridiculous thing he said. Yeah. Sean Payton's just I don't know, man. He just says things that annoy me. And anyway, so the context of that offense is like, how many touchdowns are they really going to score? How many yards are they really going to accumulate in general? On top of the fact that Sean Payton, he likes to split his backfields. We know that there are plenty of their capable backs. Right. I think the early down work definitely, I think, as long as things go as planned, belongs to Javonte Williams. But what's that really worth in that Denver offense? And that's why I think I like Javonte Williams as an ADP beater. But, if I've got like pick 9 or 10 in a super flex league or something like that, I'm probably going to do something. I would probably do something like Christian McCaffrey anchor and just wait. And Javonte Williams, as of right now, you can wait on him to a certain degree. There are arguments to be made that like, oh, hey, well, you could always wait on Zeke too, and that'll give you the same production. I think Javonte has more upside than Zeke does at this point. But I don't know how much, right? So Javonte would be a guy that I'd be comfortable with slotting in as my RB2 if Jonathan Brooks gets taken a little earlier than usual, then I'll probably grab somebody like Javonte Williams and just roll with him as my RB2.
I mean, he's going in the 10th round right now. You could load up. I mean, if you could go between McCaffrey and this, you could load up. You can even go get a great quarterback, get an elite tight end, load up on receivers. I love that strategy. And then maybe grab. I mean, you could grab Javonte, and I think maybe even the next round, Austin Eckler could be there, and you could just go back to back on those guys. I could see that strategy. I could see that strategy paying off big time, especially if Javonte Williams comes back to being that guy. Again, RB 34 and pick number 113. He's going just behind Trey Benson, which to me probably doesn't make sense considering what that Javonte has a little bit more upside. So, well, our Kyler Murray coming off of his torn ACL. One of the things that was amazing to me was that in his first game back, he hit over 20 miles an hour, which was his highest speed since 2021. And so that I think we even traded text messages about that Kyler was back. Didn't run as much as he did before. He, his yards per game were at right around 30.5 last year. The year before they were 38. But considering where he is, he's the QB7 going at right around pick 80 right now. So in round 7, I kind of like this possibility, especially with adding Marvin Harrison to Trey McBride.
No, yeah. I mean, I think Kyler was good last year, right? I mean, there was definitely some concern that he wouldn't run at all. That, the one spot, Kyler, I sort of split the baby on. I thought he'd be back sooner. I thought that they would really push him to get back out there, but they decided, the new regime, like, hey, he's our quarterback. He's our future. We'll still have plenty of time if he comes back in October to assess where he's at, evaluate him. That'll be plenty of games. So they really took their time with Kyler, which I think was smart. And we saw a pretty close, pretty similar version of Kyler Murray from the rushing department, based on his numbers. Obviously, it wasn't the best that he's done, but I think this year he'll definitely be able to run more. They'll probably have a few more designed runs for him. And I think that he's absolutely going to pay off his ADP at QB7. And I have no problems, no reservations with Kyler being the guy at QB7 that I take. I like Kyler this year.
One more thing on top of that, their defense is still rebuilding, so they're going to be in some shootouts. And target, I think we mentioned this before. Target that Week 17 game with the Rams. I've gotten Puka Nacua and Marvin Harrison at the 1-2 turn, and then grabbed Kyler late. That's fun. All right, compa. This is where we're going to hold hands. California to Colorado. Kyle Pitts came out last year that it was multi-ligament. It was not just a simple injury. We saw that he limped a lot during the season. Compa, from that surgery, getting a full year and a full off season, could we be? Are people right to be high on him again?
I think they are, and the market is showing. I mean, he's a 6th. Given everything that we've seen with Kyle Pitts, given his history and the amount of people that he's burned, his ADP is still like the 6th round. I think that shows that the market is bullish on Kyle Pitts. I think that's accurate. I think that's correct. I said sort of towards the middle end of August, once we got some word about Kyle Pitts, I did a little bit more research about the injury itself. I specifically said this probably isn't going to be a ceiling year for Kyle Pitts. Absent the quarterback play that was terrible. I said that it wasn't going to be a ceiling year for him. I wasn't going to take him at his ADP at that time, but Kyle Pitts still has a ton of upside, right? He come back from the MCL. You rarely have an isolated MCL. Usually you have like a PCL, something involved. That seems to be what happened, and that was confirmed by Kyle Pitts himself a little bit later earlier this offseason. So now he's got the full year. Hopefully he is able to recover completely. This is the thing about Kyle Pitts, though. They have a new quarterback, right? A competent quarterback, more than competent. They have Drake London opposite side of him. They have Bijan Robinson to take off, pressure off from the run game. If there was ever a year for it to be a Kyle Pitts year, this is going to be it. If he doesn't do it this year, then next year I don't care about anything, his age. I don't care about his ADP. I probably just won't be in on Kyle Pitts, but this is sort of for me, this is the last chance that I'm giving him, because all of the pieces around him are about as ideal as you would want them to be for him to show that he can do something.
God, I hope so. I hope so. We need more tight. We had some tight ends show up last year, but it'd be great to add him to the mix. Right now he's the tight end 6, going off at right around 60, right at the 6-7. I mean 5-6 turn, right around the 6th round. So, all right. So, compa, last one, Jameson Williams. This one could be quick. He got hurt in the national championship game in 2022. caught one pass in the 2022 season. Then last year he had a hamstring injury. He also had the suspension. So had some, had a couple of highlights, scored a touchdown in the playoffs. But from a health standpoint, should he be all the way where he needs to be, where he may be close to the guy who hit 23 miles an hour in a game for Alabama?
Yeah, I think from a health perspective, it's not really a health question for Jameson Williams. It really wasn't necessarily a health question for him in 2023. I don't know what to make of Jameson Williams. It seems to be when Dan Campbell did that press conference and he said, Dan Campbell and the way that only Dan Campbell can say is something about the pride has accepted him and something like that. The herd has accepted him or whatever it was. So obviously they're still bought in on Jameson Williams. Obviously he's blazing fast. Obviously he is crazy when you see him sort of shoot out of a cannon. It's the craziest thing you see, but this is really not necessarily a health concern. This is more so a context of the offense. How do they integrate him? On paper, it makes sense, right? You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, a red zone, short to intermediate, move him around kind of guy. On paper, it makes sense to have Jameson Williams on the other side of burning defenses, burning cornerbacks. On paper, it makes sense. It just, the paper hasn't translated to fantasy points yet. I would just say, like, this is similar to Kyle Pitts. If it's not this year for Jameson Williams, it's going to be never.
I'm with you on that one. It's hard to keep waiting for a guy, and this will be year 3, and I mean, technically, we could even call this year 2, and teams are kind of giving up on guys if they haven't popped by year 2. So even if you take that rookie season away with only one catch, yeah, this has got to be it. It's kind of the injury factor isn't a part, but it's kind of the Chargers are maybe facing something similar with Quentin Johnston in year 2, but. I hope so. It'd be, man, can you imagine this? If he hits what that offense would look like, that'd be so much fun. That'd be. So vamos a ver. 14 games indoors, by the way. 14 games indoors. Jared Goff loves that. But and one of the outdoor games is week 17 in San Francisco, where the weather should be just fine. So kind of similar to indoors. So compa, thought we for Cultura class, it might be fun to give those who might not know where the origin of the term compadre comes from. So it kind of has a double meaning. And I actually salute you. You started calling me compa first, which that really touched my heart. So if you want to lead off a little bit on what the word compadre means to you.
Yeah. So compadre, by the literal definition of the word, is a co-father, right? Co-father, obviously it dates back to, like, it's got religious views where if, a compadre, a comadre, a co-mother, you are the godparents religiously of their children. You're there for their baptism. You serve as an actual witness, et cetera, et cetera. And so you start, it's very Mexican to say compadre, comadre. Generally, they're very close friends. Generally, oftentimes they're related and they're quite literally cousins or quite literally brothers. One of the couples are brothers or their sisters or whatever the case may be. So it's just a term of endearment that, you were to say, like, my brother, right? Or something like that. Or it's like when families that are unrelated, but the children call the adults, auntie, uncle, tia, and tío, right? It's sort of in that vein. And I've gotten to work really closely with you. I've got to work really closely with your oldest daughter. So, I think you're my good friend. And so that's sort of it holds a deep meaning. So that's I don't know if I explained it correctly, but that's generally how I interpret it.
You nailed it. And it is, it is kind of like elevating a friend. I mean, Rich Eisen uses it a lot with on his show. But it is something that you it is a kind of next level friendship. So the higher elevating in tier to use a fantasy football term. But definitely a special term. Yes. Amigos, amigas, please feel free to call people compadres, compadres, comadres, whatever. That just means they're the extra special friends. And all the godparents to our kids, we call them compadre and comadre, and they're just they're family. So oh man, compa, this is a good one. This is a good one. So let's close up shop. Okay, we make sure you're following our YouTube page. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Injury Prone Podcast on YouTube. Get those numbers. Let's see if we can get our numbers up to 500 by the time the season starts. We're getting close. We're getting close. Oh, before I forget, Pro Athlete Physical Therapy at Pro Athlete PT. Hit that like, subscribe, follow the podcast. I'm telling you, I learn so much every time Edwin brings on one of his guests. It's really good. And last but not least, Underdog promo code Injury Prone, all one word, una palabra, Injury Prone. You're gonna get matched up to your first $250 in your deposit. So, compa, any last words?
Comment SF. What did we say? Compadre in the bottom. I don't even remember.
Yeah, SF Compadre.
SF Compadre. If you want to be in a league with us, and if there's enough interest, we'll drum up a league, maybe 2, because we're degenerates.
Yes. Let's do it. Come on, compete with us. Otra vez, muchas gracias, everybody. This is the Injury Prone Podcast, where you come for the injuries and you stay for the tacos and tequila. Salud.